Welcome to 40 Dates in 40 Days. I'm Sarah Beth, your host. I recently turned 40 and decided to go on 40 dates in 40 days in hopes of finding my person. I'll be documenting this in close to real time and wondering right along with you, will she meet someone? So grab your cup of tea, we are going to spill it, settle in, it is time to yap. Welcome back to 40 Dates in 40 Days. I'm Sarah Beth, and this is episode 6. Yes, episode 6. Today we are talking with Lindsay Taylor, who's a therapist and dating coach. I actually just finished recording with her before I'm recording this part. Y'all, it is such a good conversation. I'm so excited for you to hear it, and hopefully I can get her back on another time. Maybe we can talk some more because there's just so much to chat about. I've talked with so many of you on Instagram, wherever, and met several of you in real life, which thank you so much for coming to say hi to me. And we're just all in it together. And I just really appreciated Lindsay's perspective. She comes from having experienced the same thing of being single later in life. So you're going to love the conversation. Before we dive in, I have, of course, some tea. This is not a recap episode, so I won't spill as much this week, but I will spill some, of course. This is my Nashville mug, and the reason I chose it, it's got lipstick on it. The reason I chose my Nashville mug this week is because this week in real life, the dates were so terrible. Like, they put my other weeks to shame. It was so awful this week. Honestly, I didn't even go on that many, so I can't really say they were terrible. They didn't happen. And Nashville, this city has never let me down. It is the true love of my life. If you all listen to country, you may know Morgan Wallen's song, I Can't Love You More Than My Hometown. I always thought that was an insane song. What do you mean you love a city more than a person? I still think is a little crazy. And I also understand it because Nashville, I love you so much. So Lindsay Taylor, as I said, dating coach and therapist, I picked her to join me on this podcast because I had asked for some recommendations for dating coaches or matchmakers, someone in that field that could speak to what to do. Why is this so hard? That is my new mantra. Why is this so hard? But I wanted somebody that could be personally vouched for. I mean, there's a million experts on the internet, and I wanted someone that someone knew in real life, and I wasn't going to get a crazy person on here. So one of my friends does see Lindsay and suggested her, and it's just great. I think you're going to love it. But first, let's start with a bad date story and a good date story. This one comes in from one of my friends. She, in college, went to a small private school, and they had a harvest festival where the guys asked girls to go with them in a creative way. So she gets back to her dorm room and finds this note and realizes she's about to go on a scavenger hunt. So she goes on the scavenger hunt all around campus. The final clue leads her back to her dorm room where this guy is standing in her room that she has never seen before. She did not know him at all, but she said, I was trying to be open-minded and just wanted to be nice, so she agreed to go with him. The night of the festival, they went to dinner, but instead of taking to a restaurant, he just starts driving away from campus. They just keep going. She's thinking, oh, what have I done? So they get to this dark house, and he said, oh, this is my friend's house. They're out of town, but they said I could use it to cook you dinner. Apparently, he didn't have any money to take her out, which no shame, but maybe communicate that in advance. So he made her this taco casserole, but he forgot a bunch of the ingredients, so it just wasn't good. Dessert was frozen solid, and she just said it was awkward conversation. The whole thing was just really awkward and painful. They go back to the event. Fortunately, they met up with some friends there, so it was fine. But obviously, this was not going to be a match. He, however, thought the date went well, and so she had to avoid him from then on around campus. He knew her just by proxy because she lived in the same dorm as a lot of the softball players, and he worked for the softball team. So that's how he knew her. I mean, brave of him to go all in for this girl he'd never spoken to, but also not surprising, it was not successful. So that poor guy, hope he's doing well today. Hope he's learned lessons from that awkward encounter. And this is just what happens though with nice girls. These guys think it goes well and you're like, how could you possibly have thought that went well? That's happened to me more times than I can count. I'm glad they don't think I'm being a jerk, but how could you possibly? How could you possibly have thought that went well? So thank you for sending that in. Another reminder, please send in your dating stories, bad or good. I would love to hear them and share them on the podcast. They bring a little levity and potentially hope. The good ones bring hope. For a good date, I didn't have a submission again this week. Like I've said before, I think it's just harder to remember the good ones. So I got to go back in my archive. So I don't know if it can really count as a good date, but I'm scraping the barrel here. But we met for lunch and it was fine. This is when I was younger. I was early 30s. And again, hadn't been through therapy yet, hadn't really learned a lot about boundaries, hadn't learned that first dates should generally be pretty short. Just even if you like the person, they should be short. Hadn't learned about attachment theory, any of that. So I meet this guy and we went to lunch and then he said, do you want to go to Arrington Vineyard? A really nice vineyard. If you're not from Nashville, it's near Franklin, owned by Kix Brooks of Brooks and Dunn. Anyway, I said, sure. So we went and we drank wine, but all together, I mean, this is a haul to get out there. And then we just were there. So like 7 hours. This date was 7 hours. And honestly, I'm not sure that I was even interested enough to stay for 7 hours. But again, I don't really have any boundaries at this point. And it was fine. I was having a nice time, so I just kept staying. Well, of course, then he thinks I'm like in love with him, because who wouldn't after a 7-hour date? So we did end up going out after that. I never got that interested in him. I tried because he was nice. So we broke it off one time, but then got back together. I was really weird about it. I was like, well, we can be exclusive, but I don't want to label. I was weird about it because I was not really that interested in him. And so ultimately I called it off. Actually, he's the guy I talk about, you'll hear with Lindsay. He lived way out in Spring Hill. And I was like, this is just not going to work for me. So it was a good date, but it really shouldn't have been. And it set up some not good things, mostly for him. I was kind of fine because I wasn't that interested. So I did learn a lot. And sometimes there is value in something, even if it's not great. You can learn a lot through it. And I did learn through that experience. So that's the best I can do for a good date story this week. Hopefully you all will send in some more and I'll have a better one for next week. Before we dive into my talk with Lindsay, here's something I've been thinking about recently is men's confidence. Because last night I was at the singles event at the Nashville Sounds, our baseball team, at their bar in the ballpark. And the event was you'd wear a wristband that indicated your status. Blue was single, green was taken, I think. Yellow was just here for the vibes. Orange, I think, was wingman. Whatever. Doesn't really matter what the colors meant. But so you'd pick your wristband. I saw almost no men wearing wristbands, but there were men there. They just were not fully participating. It was like they were afraid to not look cool, like not look like they wanted it. I don't know, but this is literally why we're here. And then, now maybe the younger guys were approaching the younger girls. I don't know, but no men were approaching anyone. So even at this event where we are specifically there to meet someone, men are still not taking initiative. And I'm just wondering, like, what happened to men's confidence? And Lindsay and I talk about this a little bit in the podcast, but I don't know what happened. And I don't know if we can attribute it to any one factor. But I've also been thinking about this because the speed dating event I was supposed to go to last week was canceled because not enough men showed up. But I don't think there's a lack of men who want relationships. They're just not coming to events. They're not participating in events when they do come. To me, it's a confidence issue. And I don't get it. I truly don't. I also was talking to a friend about, I've had a couple guys cancel or not go out with me or whatever because they're not comfortable with the podcast. And I do understand it sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, but you knew about it and you agreed, so that's on you. But I was talking to a friend and she was saying a confident man would be okay with what you're doing. And he would rise to the occasion and to the challenge and be like, well, I'm going to be the best so that you do keep going out with me and stop seeing other people. Which reminded me of my conversation last week with Travis from Cherries, how his now wife, when they were dating, was like, I don't want anything serious. I don't want to be exclusive. And he said, fine, do what you want to do, but just be respectful about it. And within a week, she came back and she said, no, your confidence and that you were willing to let me do that is actually what made me want to commit to you. So I don't know. You know, they talk a lot about male loneliness epidemic, but I think maybe there's a male confidence epidemic. And I think it's beyond the scope of my podcast to analyze all of that, but I'm observing it and would be curious your thoughts about it. As I've said, this week was just terrible. And so far, this whole process has not been as fun as I expected it to be. But one unexpected positive has been meeting so many of you and sharing our similar experiences. At the baseball game last night, Jill and Liddy came up and said hi. So shout out to Jill and Liddy. Thank you for saying hi. And I also tried to connect with Kristen. We missed each other. So just knowing that we're not alone has been really encouraging, and that has been something that I just didn't really expect to come out of this, but has been really nice. So thank you for sharing your experiences with me. Thank you for being encouraging to me about what I'm doing and just being kind. Like I said, even people on TikTok have been kind, which is shocking to me. So I appreciate that. It is still discouraging. Let me be clear, but I appreciate these relationships that are coming out of it and the camaraderie through common experiences. Okay, so this week, like I said, super disappointing, in part because I really, going into the week, thought it was going to be so much better. I was amped about this week, and it was worse. I will have a full recap next week, but here's some highlights. I have now bought a watch, like a working one. Sometimes I wear watches that the battery's dead just for looks, but I thought, no, these dates are so terrible. I don't know if I've been here 20 minutes or 3 hours, and I don't want to be rude and look at my phone, so I need to just like subtly. It's not perfect. I really wanted to get a digital one, so it was just bright and I could see it real fast, but all those digital ones would have looked real bad with my outfits. So this was the best I could do. But we'll see. I've yet to wear it on a date because my dates kept canceling. Another guy made me cry this week, but at least this one was before the date instead of during. So maybe that's promising. On the apps, it's always an adventure, honestly. I've talked before about guys who say that they're sarcastic, really, I think means they're a jerk, or guys who, you know, these, what are you looking for, really means they're not looking for anything serious. You learn the code words. Another code word is I'm not looking for a hookup. I honestly don't believe them when they say that, because I feel like, who's asking you, random Johnny, 38-year-old Johnny in Franklin, Tennessee, who's asking you to hook up? Like, is this really such a problem that you have to put it on your apps? Maybe it is, but when I see it, it's similar to the no drama. I think you are the drama. I just don't believe them when they say that. Another guy I've matched with a couple times. And so we matched again. And I said, what happened? I think we've matched several times. And he said, I don't know. I probably deleted the app every time. And I said, I get it. I get frustrated and do the same thing. So I get it. But let's make plans real fast so that doesn't happen again. He said, okay. Send him my number. Nothing. I mean, we're talking within an hour, these two comments. Nothing. The next day, I said, oh no, did we already miss the window? 4 days later, he finally texted me and he's like, LOL, this is how Hinge is, or par for the course, whatever he said. And so I texted him back, but he just not serious at all. So last night he's texting me. I'm studying for this exam, but I'm looking for things to distract me this weekend. I said, well, I'm happy to accommodate that. Do you want to do something tomorrow or Monday? And he said, well, what are you doing tonight? This is at 9:30, by the way. He's already told me he's drinking. This is 9:30. And I said, honestly, I'm tired. I'm about to go to bed. He said, but the night is so young. And I was like, I'm tired. So I don't think we'll ever talk again, because I think that's really what he was looking for. Fine, better to find it out now than later, but come on, dude. Another guy that I've matched with many times. This is why I said, usually I debate, do I rematch? Maybe the timing was off the last time or whatever. But usually there was a reason it didn't go anywhere the first time. So this guy, he and I have matched so many times over the years. He's very good looking, but we've never gone out. And I eventually stopped matching with him because I realized it was dead end, despite how good looking he is. I also think he might be stupid. Aaron, calling you out. I think you're an idiot. We matched and I said, is this going to be the time that we finally meet up? He was like, maybe. So again, dead end conversation. Well, last Sunday, I might have mentioned this on the podcast, but last Sunday morning, he texted me, what are your plans today? And I said, just chores, but I have time to meet up. Again, like within an hour, never responded. Then Friday or Saturday night, whenever it was, Friday night, I guess, he texted me at like 10 o'clock, do you want to come over? And I said, literally, I said, no, LOL. He responded, sure. And I just ignored him after that because, yes, I was quite sure that I did not want to come over and see Aaron, who is a 42-year-old child. So we'll never match again. But anyway, another guy was a little intense in his profile. I wasn't quite feeling it, but he also was interesting. So I was going to like let it play out. But he added me on Instagram before we'd ever met, not my public one. My private personal account. He found it and added me. And I'm like, no, I have like 500 friends on there. Random dude that I've never met. No, I'm not confirming. I'm not adding you. So unmatched him, deleted the friend request, whatever. Another thing I've been thinking about this week is married people platitudes. And Lindsay and I talk about a couple of them. And I suppose it's not just married people that say this, but I think single people don't generally say these things because they're single and they know how frustrating and irritating all of these are. So one of them is you'll find someone when you're not looking. That's the one Lindsay and I really get into. Another, I can't believe you aren't married yet. Well, neither can we. And I know these are well-meaning. These are people that don't know what to say or they're trying to share what they think worked for them. Probably didn't work quite as they're remembering it, but nevertheless, they don't understand that dating today is so vastly different than it was before the online age. And, people don't know how to be sensitive. It's true after someone passes away. It's true when you're trying to get pregnant. Even well-meaning, kind people can be really inconsiderate sometimes. So I am sharing these so that you stop. So I can't believe you're not married yet. If I were younger or if I were single, well, you're not. So that's actually not a helpful thing to say. Similarly, why are you still single? The implication there is there must be a reason, aka there must be something wrong with you. Also similarly, you're so great. I know you'll find someone, you just have to be patient. Well, some of us have been patient a very long time, and some of us don't have trouble believing we're great, but that doesn't seem to be helping. Just do what you love, and you will meet him that way. I think that can be valid for extreme introverts who are staying at home, never going out, but then complaining about not meeting somebody. You do have to just get out there. That's part of it. That is not helpful to me, who runs the tip jar and literally goes out every day. I am doing what I love. That's not helping either. People then suggest, well, what if you join a kickball league or whatever? I think that's a great suggestion if you're talking to somebody who's athletic. I did join a Colts meetup group. I'm willing to do that. I did that on my own, though. I didn't do that to meet somebody. I just did it. For me to join a kickball league would not be authentic to me. And I did try it once and I hated it and didn't even make any friends, much less someone to date. Then, of course, have you tried online dating as if that's a novel concept? Yes. We all have. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts for the week before we get into this conversation with Lindsay. I'm so excited to re-listen to my own podcast and glean more things from her. I hope you'll really enjoy this conversation with her because I did, and I think she's got a lot of great things to say. So with no further ado, let's join Lindsay Taylor. Welcome, everybody. I have Lindsay Taylor here. She is a therapist and dating coach, and we're going to talk about dating, how to do it well that will lead to a successful result. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for being to talk to you. Why don't we start with just telling us a little bit about you, your story, what led you to become a dating coach, and so forth.
Well, I'm really, really very honored to be on this podcast. I think it's such a cool project you're doing. The dating coaching has evolved naturally from my personal life primarily. I started as a therapist and I'm still a therapist, but I had an over 10 plus years journey of mostly online dating. I did meet people through other people and things like that occasionally, but the trials of that really showed me, okay, some things that I'm doing in my relationships are not working. But there I was as a therapist, holding people's babies and helping them find love over and over again. And there were a lot of blind spots, I think, in my life. And so I could teach all the tools, but I don't know if I was always applying them. And then the dating world just became so increasingly hard to navigate. And I was dating the same person over and over that I was like, something's wrong. So I definitely started seeking out other dating coaches, and I saw several, and a lot of the stuff that they shared was helpful. Not all of it, but I piecemealed, is that a word? All of the information and kind of figured out kind of like a system of how to date in a little bit of a different way, and as well as doing a lot of inner healing work on myself. And I think that definitely led to the ability to meet my now wonderful husband. But it's been a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, most of your dating was online. I think that's something for people who got married before the online revolution, whether that was a year before or 40 years ago, like our parents, it's so different and it is tricky to navigate. The same rules don't apply.
No.
And I know we're going to talk more about that, but I think that is key, that dating in this online world is just a different animal.
It legitimately is. I think that's an excellent point, because I remember as I was going through the dating process, trying to talk to like my mother or my 10 years older sister, and it felt incredibly lonely because they just absolutely did not understand. I felt lonely in the process. I didn't realize how many other people around our age were absolutely going through this, and no one really talked about it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a whole different thing now than it used to be, and you need a different way to attack it, so to speak,
Yeah.
than previous times in
Yeah.
history.
So what is dating coaching? I'm sure there are a lot of different definitions. How do you define it? How is that different from traditional therapy that most of us, sidebar, I will say until the day I die, I think millennials are going to be hailed as one of the greatest generations to ever live. One of the
Amen.
reasons I think that is because we all go to therapy and we're all working through stuff.
I've never heard it put that way, actually, and I 1000% agree. I talk a lot as a therapist about these generational patterns. And yes, our generation, especially the millennials, I just so agree. We are the first to kind of say something ain't working.
Yeah.
We got to do some things differently. And we do feel our feelings now, and we talk through things. But it can go too far too, where everything's about feelings, and that's maybe the next generation. So I like our generation maybe in that balance or whatever. But dating coaching, the best way I can explain it is it's basically teaching these dating tools on how to navigate the dating world differently, with a system, with techniques, with actual processes that work. But I tend to not start the dating coaching or teaching how to date and have healthy relationships until I've done the therapy part with clients, typically. So the therapy part would be what I call the inner healing work, understanding your past traumas, healing those, understanding your attachment to other people, your past relationships, and things like that. It's hard to go straight into dating coaching with a client if they've had no previous therapy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and we're going to talk a little bit more about attachment theory, because that I've shared with you. I mean, there are a million different psychological theories out there, but attachment theory, when I first became aware of it, I thought, this explains everything. And I think just the knowledge in and of itself was really helpful, but then working through that a little bit more. Since we're talking about it, I'm going out of order a little bit in our prepared questions, but can you give us a brief overview of what is attachment theory?
Yes, I will. I probably am not the most by the book person when it comes to that specific topic, but how I think of attachment theory is how I was taught by a wonderful older lady therapist named Betty.
Oh.
And she explained that our primary attachment figures are usually our parents. They're the first people in life that we attach to. And all of those attachments, if you imagine like a hard drive of your soul, all of those experiences with your parents form little imprints on the hard drive. And each imprint creates what's called a life script of this is how life is going to go. So we get an imprint of femaleness from our mothers. We get an imprint of maleness from our fathers. We get an imprint of romantic relationships put on that hard drive. And so, for example, if we saw our parents constantly fighting in constant chaos, then we might get that little imprint on our hard drive that relationships are very chaotic and difficult. And that could create this life script that, well, my relationships are probably going to be chaotic and difficult. And so it would naturally mean you attract that into your life because it's just familiar. And the root word of familiar being fam. So these things, what I love about attachment theory is once you bring these subconscious life scripts to the conscious, well, then you can make way better decisions in your life and relationships. So attachment starts with what we see in our parents. And then another really crucial part of attachment theory that I think is probably the most crucial is learning to find total safety and total connection with yourself. That's just as important as understanding how to connect with another person. And so that I can say a lot about that, but essentially I really like inner child work for that, because when you start to go, wait a minute, when I was a kid, I didn't get to feel that. I didn't understand that then. Now I get to understand those feelings in an empowered way and heal that. Wow, now I can really make more conscious decisions in the world with my relationships. So finding that attachment to yourself and your inner child, it sounds kind of cheesy, but it can really change the game entirely. That's saying a lot. But
I've worked a little bit on attachment with my therapist, and I'm aware of this lingo. I don't know how much progress I've made or I haven't, but nevertheless, recently I posted a reel using the AI baby talking podcast thing. And so it's a baby that's supposed to be me, doesn't even look like me as a baby, but it's representing me. And honestly, just seeing this precious little fake AI baby that was so cute, but with my voice and my emotions and my story, I was like, I want to protect this child. Like, I felt so maternal towards this fake AI baby. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of part of what inner child work is, right? Is like getting in touch, like taking care of that little person inside of you.
I think that's kind of funny, but also amazing. Because that's exactly correct, is that, yes, learning to find that attachment. You said protection, connection, nurturing that part of yourself. You can call it parts work or inner child work. I kind of mix both, but you felt connection and protection for that baby self, but you can do that with every part of your life: adolescence, early adulthood, traumatic memories, learning to say, what did I need in that moment? How do I give that to myself now? And how do I find that safety with myself no matter who I'm with or what's happening in my life? So yes, it's extremely important. And I think it's kind of cool that AI can do stuff like that, because that would give you an actual visual of loving your child self. Very powerful, I think.
Yeah, one of the good uses, because I really think AI is the downfall of humanity.
I do
But
too.
but in this case,
I
it was
have that
good.
in our questions.
Okay, so one last thing, and this is honestly more of a personal question. EMDR, which I've read, probably a lot of people listening to this have read The Body Keeps the Score, and he loves EMDR, just sings his praises, and I've heard such great things about it. My therapist and I have delved slightly into it. We haven't really dug into it yet, and I'm eager to, just because everybody says it's so amazing. But can you talk a little bit about EMDR, how it works, and why it can be so helpful to people?
Yes. Once again, I am more of an eclectic practitioner. There's no therapy that I do fully 100% the way it's taught. So I actually combine EMDR parts work, which is also called internal family systems, and child work together. But that's not common. It's just something that through the years, I'm like, oh, that works, that doesn't work. I throw out the things that don't work. But quickly, EMDR is designed to stimulate both sides of your brain bilaterally. You can do it like by tapping or holding vibrating little instruments to reconnect these parts of your brain that have been damaged, just too strong, but affected by trauma. And I have found as a therapist, you don't need the bilateral stimulation. What you need to do though is go back in with your eyes closed, have a good therapist who can get you in the state of the time of that trauma and get a sense memory of it while you go back through it in a different way. And a good therapist will use attachment work to do that, or inner child work to do that. So I'll just be vague. Like, let's say you had a traumatic memory with a dad. He screamed too loud and it was very, very traumatic for your little 5-year-old self. Remember, we can do any age, literally any age. I can do a year ago if I need to.
And trauma can be capital T, life-altering event, or your dad screaming too loud.
Right. It can mean, yes, it could be one horrible, tragic, like car accident or something, or that. So it means different things to different people. But I primarily use EMDR to address attachment trauma. And so I combine inner child work with that. So let's say you're going through your dad screaming at you and you feel those feelings again and reprocess those feelings with your eyes closed. And that's painful. But what do? We don't want to leave you there. We add in you as an adult coming in and talking to that younger self and giving her the love, attention, and nurturing protection that she needs. And it's very, very powerful. I was taught that for EMDR, you have to do the same memory over and over and over and over again. I completely disagree with that. I've seen clients like one memory, one session, done. Next memory, done. Like when you combine the inner child work with giving yourself that love you needed, you don't have to be in therapy for years and years and years. I don't know. That's probably a long explanation.
No. That was good. And like I said, that was a me question. Hopefully everybody listening to it can benefit from it as well. But that was really, I've been curious about that. Okay, so going back to dating broadly, what are some trends that you're seeing in 2025? And are these different really from what you've seen over the course of your career? I know we already talked about it's certainly way different from pre-online, but what are some of those trends?
Well, AI in particular, that's the latest thing that I've been noticing. Like, kind of have a little bit of a problem there with it because people are now using AI to write their dating profiles, and AI is giving the clever prompt answers and things like that. And I had a client show me her profile because that is part of the dating coaching is I will completely look at your profile, every part of it, pictures, copy, all of it. And she sent her profile to me. And all of the answers were AI answers, and it sounded absolutely nothing like her.
Oh, interesting.
And so that kind of clued me into this is a problem. I know that this will be a problem. It's a trend and it will become a problem because you can use AI to write your profile, but what's going to happen when you're in person? It's not going to translate. So I definitely think that that's a trend that I find problematic. I could say more, but
yeah. And I've seen that. I talked about that on a previous episode. I was like, there's always been the question of, is this a bot or just a weirdo? And now I feel like, is this a bot? Is this a weirdo? Is this AI? Like, there are so many more options other than just, is this guy weird or cool?
I think it's kind of crazy. So that element I did not have to navigate personally. That's how recent that trend is because I've only been married 3.5 years, but that's a very, very recent trend. Definitely. I think another really problematic trend is in society, the confusion of masculine, feminine has created a lot of confusion in the dating world. And I speak ad nauseum about masculine, feminine energy. It would take me a while to do that here, but it's really important to have polarity in dating, and polarity is those opposite energies. And I've seen that women are coming forward in so much masculine energy in the way they pursue the relationship and the way they handle the relationship, that it's really, no other way to say it, backfiring, I think, in terms of getting what you want, which is the love, nurturing, protection of a man, because the highest form of masculine energy is nurturing. They actually want to take care of us and love us with their full heart. And so when we're leaning forward with a lot of masculine energy, it really, really affects feeling fulfilled in dating and relationships majorly. But that's a big topic.
Well, yeah. And I think the counterpoint that many people would say is that, but men aren't doing anything. Like at the singles event I was at last night, we are all there to meet someone. No men, they weren't even wearing the wristbands they were supposed to wear to indicate that they were available. They were not even participating, but they're there. And then they're certainly not approaching women. I'm like, what? To me, it feels like there's just this complete lack of confidence in a lot of men.
I can see that. I know what you're talking about. I hear you 1,000%. And I don't ever want to come across like I'm blaming women, because that's not what I want to do. But I think that online dating is what I could start to begin to blame for men not approaching in public. I think we could also move into Me Too, where it made men afraid, like it or lump it. I mean, it made men afraid to approach a woman in person, like at the grocery store, in line. That's virtually non-existent now. Any client that I'm counseling, I can't think of one client, and I counsel a lot, who's told me they've been approached by a man, not even at bars really that much, but I'm talking about in regular life, and had it go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think there's societal things that have contributed to that. I think there's also things in family dynamics that have contributed to that, that have created the sense of that men can't be in their masculine. And they don't know how to be in their masculine. So yeah, it's definitely a frustrating problem. I can see that.
Well, and I said this recently to someone. They're like, at what point do we stop blaming COVID? But I do think COVID completely changed how we interact with people. And even if psychologically you're not afraid of getting sick anymore, you still got out of the habit of talking to strangers and going out. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like our whole, even meetings changed. Meetings aren't in person anymore. You know, so much shifted during COVID.
I agree. I definitely agree. I happen to have met my husband right at the tail end of it. So I guess my personal experience is different. But as I think through what you're saying, yes, I can absolutely see how COVID affected people's abilities socially.
Yeah.
Definitely. 100%. Yes.
Okay, I have so many more thoughts about that, but let's keep going. Everyone says dating in Nashville is terrible. To me, the 2 years I lived in DC, which granted were COVID years, so a little abnormal, but still, DC is infinitely worse than Nashville, in my opinion. So I think dating is just terrible everywhere. Do you think it's worse in Nashville? Do you think it's terrible everywhere? What do you think about that?
Well, my primary experience personally dating is in Nashville, but I have clients all over the country who date all over the country. So I think I really can speak on that. I think Nashville's particularly hard. I do. I think there's a lot of transient people in Nashville who are not there permanently, or who just moved to town, you know, or downtown and changed their settings because they want to have fun. You have a lot of professions that don't necessarily, I want to be careful, lend themselves to highly committed people, like lots of musicians. That's a transient lifestyle. I love musicians.
Right.
But in terms of
dating,
yeah, it's not the most ideal there. And so I think that Nashville has become, there's nothing wrong with drinking, but it seems like everything revolves around drinking in Nashville now. It didn't used to feel that way.
Yeah.
There are activities and things, but I don't know. I think all of those things combined have created, Nashville is not the easiest place to date. But I have clients all over the country who have overlapping, very similar problems and challenges in the dating world too. So I can't say it's all Nashville.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people will feel validated, though,
Yeah,
by you saying Nashville's not easy.
I mean, I'm from Franklin, Tennessee, lived in Nashville, worked in Nashville, and did not meet anyone worth marrying for myself personally in Nashville. I had to find my very wonderful man in North Alabama.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't ever expect to move, but it was worth it. And we do happen to be moving back, but I personally have had struggles there.
Yeah. So are you open to talking about how you guys met and how that unfolded?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, I had like I said, started to understand this dating system that was working for me personally. And I had come to a very healthy place in my life. Anyone who tells you that they want to find a loving life partner and spouse and that they just found them when they stopped looking is lying. That is a lie because anybody who wants that will always want that.
Yeah.
But I think you can get to a more healthy place, a more leaned back, connected, relaxed place in it. And I would say that's the place I got to. So to answer the question, I had created a system I was on Hinge. I like Hinge. I preferred it. Clients now are telling me some problems with it in that they don't get a lot of matches. But to
Oh,
be honest,
same. Hinge
okay.
is terrible for me.
Everyone tells me that, and I have to say, then you could also say it was terrible for me as well, in that I didn't get many matches. But what I would do, and I thought this was helpful, this is my own technique, this wasn't anything anybody taught me. I would delete the app for a week, then I would re-download it, not like create a new profile, but just re-download the app. And I would see, it made me feel good to see, okay, like maybe I got like 7 guys that liked me. And I have a whole thing about not liking them. You can, but I don't think you get the same results. So I would see who likes me and it would be like, no, 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 no. And then I would be like back to my life for a week. And I just decided to live that way psychologically. It was the most healthy. Anyway, it was Mother's Day 2021. And I saw my husband's profile and I was like, well, I can't delete it. That was for me. It was like, I can't rule it out. I wanted to rule it out. I couldn't rule it out. About a month later, we talked on the phone and I liked him, but I don't know. Long story short, I kind of rejected him. We met a month later and we were married 5 months later.
Wow.
And I was 36 years old.
Okay. So you had your radius set far enough to capture North Alabama.
No, he had his radius set, and I don't know how it caught me. And that's where I think God is sometimes involved in things.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing that is annoying to me, was annoying to me, and still is. You got to wait for the right timing. That is an annoying thing that people say. So what I say is, what can you control? You can control the right you, right? You can be the right you, but you can't control exactly the right timing or the right guy. There is an element that we don't control there, but that's why I like helping clients control what they can.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an element of some weird things happening where his settings were far, but mine weren't.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to go to North Alabama.
Right. Yeah.
So long and short, it worked out. But we just, as soon as I met him, I was like, this meets everything in the character of the man and the compatibility, morals, values, which are the most foundational important thing. And I felt very peaceful. I always tell clients to use this. The Eagles song came over me. I had that peaceful, easy feeling. And that's a much safer feeling than the fireworks boom. And I thought, I've never felt that warm, peaceful, easy feeling with anyone. And it's worked out.
You mentioned he met those things, that the compatibility, the character qualities, all those things that are actually important. I swear, if one more person tells me to make a checklist, I will punch them in the face. But I mean,
I get it so hard. I get it so hard.
I grew up in the church, so I made a checklist from like the time I was 12 and revised it every few years. And like, I don't think the checklist is the magic thing for me. But I do think it's important to know going in what you're looking for. How do you identify those things?
I think that's an excellent question. I totally get it. I've tried to change the language. I would never say a checklist. A checklist also, let's just 2 seconds on that. You have to think about what something implies. A checklist implies sort of, one, it's all about you and what you're looking for and there's something sort of selfish sounding about it or superficial sounding about a checklist. So I never use that language, but I had a wonderful dating coach who explained the difference. She said, Lindsay, I want you to make what's called a contrast versus clarity list. This was extremely helpful because I kind of took it and ran with it. Of course, I'm a therapist, but here I was paying this dating coach more money than I charged for my therapy class. And I was like, there's something to this. But anyway, she said, make your contrast clarity list and write down all the things in all of your previous relationships that you did not like about the men. And that is going to naturally create your clarity list of what you actually need. And that, I would say, would be the beginning of me understanding my patterns fully, understanding, okay, what am I looking for in a man? Am I embodying that? Or am I looking for something that's fulfilling an old wound from the past? And so I think the contrast clarity really cleared a lot up for me.
Okay.
And then it made me go, okay, I am actually looking for these things. There is another woman who y'all can go look up right now. Her name is Margaret Paul, and I found her completely on my own out of desperation. I mean, I'm telling you, I got desperate. I'm like, something's wrong here. Like, there's a comedian that's like, why is somebody not hitting this every night?
Seriously.
I mean, it's like what's going on? So I dug into Margaret Paul, and I found this process called inner bonding, which is a more intense form of inner child work. And it's Margaret Paul who has a lifestyle list of things to look for, like a character list and a lifestyle list. And that really blew my mind too, because I will never forget, she's like, pick what fits for you, you know. And there's this section that's like the character of a man, and it's like, can do house shopping, can listen to directions. I never would have thought of that. And like, now that I am married, it's like, that is so crucial to be able to say, can you go pick this and this up, and they can do that, or they're happy to do that. That's the stuff in life that really matters, actually, that makes the relationship work. So her checklist, she doesn't call it that, was also very helpful to me. And it was like, what kind of lifestyle do you want? Do you want an urban lifestyle, a rural lifestyle? And for some reason, I instinctively checked rural, because I'd always kind of wanted to do that. And we have lived this life out here. We are moving back. But I think, and then I met Wayne shortly after. So it just forced me to really get really specific.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long answer.
No, I like the lifestyle list too, because urban and rural was specifically the example I was thinking of, because I've been out with these guys that live way on the outskirts of Nashville, and they're like, I don't want to come into the city. And I said, that's fine, but my entire life is in the city. My business is in the city. Everything I like to do is in the city. Like, we're just not, our lives are not going to be compatible. You know, it's one thing if they'd rather have a little land, but still want to come in all the time. But if you're like, no, I just don't like going to the city. Well, our lifestyles do not match. This is not.
That's right. And so that means you're not compatible from the
Right.
start. And so what I would say from a dating perspective is to filter that quick. So
Yeah.
you don't even get on a date with that guy. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, I did do that with one.
Okay.
He lived in Franklin. Like, he doesn't even live in the sticks. He's just like, I don't want to come up to Nashville. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to work out. Thanks. Bye.
It's not. It's not. Because think of the conflict in marriage that will happen when you want to go have fun in this in the city, and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
So this stuff plays out. It literally plays out.
Well, even when I was younger, there was a guy who, he was a nice guy and he was really into me, but he lived out in Spring Hill. And this is 7 or 8 years ago. So Spring Hill was even less built up then. If you're listening and not familiar with Nashville, Spring Hill is 40 minutes south of Nashville, and it's fairly rural, being built up now. But he'd bought a house there when he was in his 20s. So even in his 20s, he chose to live in way out there. And when he'd drive me around, because we're dating, he would drive and it'd be fine. But he would make a comment, I don't really like driving in Nashville. And I just had this vision of when the honeymoon period is over, 5 years from now, oh, I don't want to go, honey, you just go out with your friends every single time.
Yeah.
And that's just not what I want. So that was kind of the final straw for me, is the Spring Hill house. No offense to people who live in Spring Hill, but
because you are correct. And that's why I think, yes, them, you know, if the guy having the same musical taste is great. I mean, I'm not going to diss that, but it's not the stuff that actually creates compatibility and a healthy, loving, long-term relationship. You have to have those general ideas that are the same about life and how you do life. And from there, and their character, and I didn't tell you this, but it's a podcast. I'm telling you now. The two most important character things to look for in a man is that you, one, respect him. If you do not respect him in every regard, it will not work. Number two, that he's kind. Not meek. Not nice. Kind. There's a difference. And I think these are things that I wish people would have told me
Yeah.
but I just figured out over time.
No, that's so great. I mean, that
Yeah.
was one of the things my last boyfriend and I had. It didn't work out, but one of the things that kept me in it as long as it did was he was kind, and I was so used to men who were not kind. And
Mm.
so just that one thing, I was like, we got to make this work because you're nice to me. And
Yeah.
I
That
just want
goes a
somebody to be
long
nice to
way.
me. This is
I
the
think
first
we
time
should
I've
talk
cried on the
more.
podcast. I've said it was coming, but this is the first time. So, anyway.
Well, I think it's important. And it sounds like that having, I call that a redeeming experience. A guy that finally gave you that tenderness and kindness is very crucial, can be foundational for what you look for in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. You were talking earlier about some of the silly things people say that drive you crazy, and you reference the platitude. I mean, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. You'll find someone when you're not looking. What do you think about that?
It's a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell, sister. It's a lie from the, I can't stand that one. I mean, I cannot stand it because wanting a life partner is such a basic human thing for the majority of people. Very
Yeah.
few people have a single calling. That is very,
Hmm.
very, very rare. Wanting to find a life companion and a spouse is so basic that just stop looking for it. No, it's the most important thing you'll ever look for.
Hmm.
So I think what people really mean is kind of what I said earlier, that maybe when you get in a more relaxed, connected state,
Hmm.
it might be easier. But I can tell you personally, and from any client I know who's found love or a friend, they never stopped looking. They
Yeah.
might have created a different approach in how
Uh-huh.
they looked or how they connected with themselves.
Yeah.
But I do not like that platitude and I do not agree.
Yeah. Well, I had a feeling that would be your answer. I was thinking, I don't think you go into dating coaching if you're like, just do nothing.
No.
No.
No, especially for women. I would say all women, but I mean, especially women 35 and up. I mean, no, there is some actual legitimate work. It can be fun once you learn the tools and like the tools and feel really empowered. It can be fun,
Hmm.
but no, it's actual work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going to walk out of the door and meet somebody. I don't know anybody who that's happened to. And I wish back in the day we could go back in the day and do that, but that's just not what happens anymore.
Right. So you mentioned those tools. You mentioned you have a system. What are your top 3 to 5, like, what do they call it? Elevator speech, like
I
things for people
know.
to do.
I have so many that
Uh-huh.
I can't pick, but I would say everything I've said kind of comes to
Mm,
this, but the number one, and people do not like this initially, but then they start to believe me. The more you say no, the faster you'll say yes. I think people think that, well, if I keep saying no, I'm never going to get on dates. No. The more you filter for what you really want and need, the more you're going to get on high quality dates with people that you can get on second, third, fourth dates and really get to know this person. By 4 or 5 dates at this stage and age in life,
mhm.
35 and up, you should have a pretty good idea if it's
Yeah.
going to go further or not. So I would say saying no more than yes,
Mhm.
actually, overall.
Yeah, of course, is the antithesis of what I'm doing at the moment. But I do, and this was another question, so I'll just interject it now. I do find myself, I'm saying yes to like every first date, but I've been saying no to every second date.
Yeah.
And there were a couple that I was interested enough to go on a second date and they weren't. So it didn't happen. That's fine. But I'm over halfway through. I've been on, I don't know, 18 dates at this point and then some singles events. And I'm like, is this normal that none of these have become a second date?
I would say yes because of your approach, but I want to continue to say I think it's going to be helpful what you're doing and all the information you're gathering. But no, you probably wouldn't because the second thing I would say for the always do with dating is especially if you meet someone online. If their profile meets qualifications, that's how I put it, then you would need to do a screening phone call before you ever even meet that person. Why waste your time? Like, I'll give a 2-second example. I used to not do a screening phone call. Now you can do a screening FaceTime or whatever. But anyway, I didn't do that. And I got all dressed up for this very long night, the best dress, best hair, blah, blah, blah. And I was really excited because the profile seemed good. I was like, yeah, I'll go straight for the date. I get out of the car. He gets out of the car. I'm like, wow, yeah. And to be honest with you, he started talking and He was extraordinarily effeminate. That's the nicest way I can put it. I mean, I was shocked to my core, and I thought I'll never do that again. So I think a screening phone call is exceptionally helpful
Yeah. Yeah.
so that you can say, you know what, this is worth the first date, so I can get a second and a third date. So that's how I would probably answer that.
Well, after these 40 days, I'll have time to do screening phone calls.
Yeah, I
Now
would
they're just
suggest
screening dates, but oh gosh.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips?
I would say the Margaret Paul, the lady who does inner bonding, she did a seminar and she said somebody raised their hand and they said, "What do you do if somebody rejects you?" And she was like, "No one can reject you if you don't reject yourself." So I'll never forget that. I thought it was extremely helpful. And I think when you do that healing work and feel attached to yourself and understand your relationship patterns, then you're going to be able to go out dating with a really good confident state and not be so attached to what they think of you,
Yeah.
but more attached to what you think of them. So I would say that's probably my number 3 is that you cannot go into the dating world without somebody's going to look at you and say, no, you're not a match. And
Yeah.
you need to be ready for that and say, but I'm choosing myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's a crucial sort of mindset.
Yeah. What would you say to someone like me who was quite discouraged because we are putting in the effort? I've put in the effort on myself trying to, work through my own issues. I've put in the effort, obviously, with this podcast, but I've met and talked to so many people since I started this who are in a similar boat, male and female. Primarily female, but in their 30s or 40s, it hasn't worked out. The dating pool seems abysmal. We're all just really tired and very discouraged. What would you say?
I hear you so hard. One thing is, now this is the easy thing to say, and then I'll say more, is to remember to have an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset. So the abundance mindset is there's more than enough people out there. And one thing someone said to me one time that really helped me, that was encouraging, is that it kind of sounds awful, but people are always leaving relationships all the time, like through either divorce or death or things like that. I hate to say it that way.
Yeah.
But men who were previously not available, or women, are going to start to become available. That alone was helpful to me, but it is discouraging out there. And another thing I would absolutely say is kind of what I mentioned earlier. When you start to feel that discouragement of like, it's like you're swiping and it's like, no, 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 no. And it just feels awful, to take what I call swipe breaks, or to take dating breaks where you just get back to your grounded self, the people you love, the things that you do that feel really fulfilling, and get filled back up before you go out again. Because when you start dating from that burnout place, nobody's going to look appealing. And also, you don't look appealing.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah.
So I think taking breaks and getting back to yourself is really important. And like I said, I would take a whole week off of it so that I could just feel normal. Because I think you can start to feel like lonely, like, is this ever going to happen? And you just have to get away from it and get less attached to it at times.
Yeah. Well, and I like that it was a week. Sometimes I feel like when I've taken a break from dating, sometimes I'm really excited about it. And other times I think, but if I take a month or 2 months or whatever, I'm wasting all this time. But a week is very manageable.
Yes, it is manageable. And sometimes that quality with yourself and the regroundedness with yourself makes the dating better.
Yeah.
So a week is what I just sort of, like I said, no one told me that one. That was intuitive. And it really, really helped.
Yeah, I think you need time, especially, I've had such a string of disappointing ones, and just like mentally recovering.
You have to mentally recover because it's psychologically a lot to process. It really is a lot to process. Even if you filtered for them and they meet your qualifications and they've got great character, you still have to process a lot.
Yeah.
And then if you really like them, I think that can be stressful as well. Like,
Sure.
what's the pacing? How long before I see them again? And I think you had mentioned earlier about talking about insecure attachment and anxious attachment. And what I have found as a dating coach is, yes, some people absolutely legitimately have those wounds, but dating in and of itself is an anxiety producing type of activity in general. I
Yeah.
think take away attachment wounds, take those away. I think dating's hard. I don't think it's easy.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, and that's why you have to it sounds so trite or like a platitude, but you really do have to take care of yourself in the process.
Okay, well, I want to be respectful of your time, Lindsay. I do have one more question. And again, this is sort of a personal one, but you said when we were talking prior to this podcast, you said, like to remind people it only takes one, which my mother has also said to me my entire adolescent and adult life. And while I conceptually yes, it only takes one, when you're going out with so many and you're like, out of all of these, why can I not find even one? It does get discouraging, like we talked about. So,
And it's funny because I think I told you that on the phone, and then
uh-huh,
you sent me the questions about how
uh-huh.
that's a triggering question. But I kind of mean it in the best possible way, in the sense of the mindset of, yes, I've looked at my contrast clarity list and I really, really know what I'm looking for and I've done my work. But there's still going to be a lot of no's. And knowing that it just takes one yes, it changes your whole life. One yes changes your whole life. I had never been in love. I had never really dated anyone more than like 4 months or something. I just got to thinking of, it's just going to be a lot of no's, and I'm enjoying my life as best I can while looking for this. And when I met my husband, the garage door went up and I saw he's very handsome. That's another thing. You don't have to settle for not attractive. I
Good to
always
know
thought
because
that,
I have so many times.
because I was like, oh, he's very, very attractive.
Uh-huh.
And that yes has changed my entire life.
Mm.
But I did the work and the build up to get to that. So I get why it's triggering, but I also think it can be helpful while you're in that process of
Yeah.
saying no. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. Is there anything that you would like to add as we wrap up?
So many things. I've really enjoyed this so much. I mean, we could do 3 or 4 or 5 more of these, I
Uh-huh.
think. I would say too, just remember when you're looking for someone and you're doing this and you're applying these tools. When you're in your healthiest, best self and you've given to yourself first, then you've really got that cup to pour from, because you're not dating to date. You're dating to get in a long-term, healthy, loving relationship. Relationships are really more about giving than getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's something that was hard for me very early in life. And then as I got older and did this work and realized, wait a minute, I give that love to myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you're in a relationship, you're not trying to get anything from them
Mm-hmm.
except just a wonderful companionate life. So
Yeah.
I would leave everybody with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Are you taking new clients, male or female, both?
Yes, I take male and female clients. I
Okay.
really enjoy my male clients. Males come to me too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I am taking new clients, and
Okay.
you can reach out on my website
Okay.
or my email.
Okay, which I'll put in the show notes. Do people have to live in Tennessee or Alabama or
No, for
no?
coaching, I can see anybody in the country. I see people all over the country. I'm
Okay.
licensed in Tennessee and Alabama.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Lindsay. I've loved talking to you. This has been really helpful. I'm excited to edit this episode just so I can re-listen to everything. Like,
Well,
glean more.
you are a joy to talk to,
Oh, thank
and
you.
listen, anytime you want to talk to me, give me a call.
Okay, I will. Well,
Okay.
thank you
All right.
again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. All right. Thank you for listening to this episode and my conversation with Lindsay Taylor. I hope it was helpful for you or interesting. Maybe you don't need dating help, but I hope it was interesting nevertheless. I love talking to her. So I'm going to put her information in the show notes so that if you need a dating coach or a therapist, just check out her website, shoot her an email. She's just great. I'm so glad that I got to talk to her. Next week will be another recap episode. And then I think the week after that is my Alaska trip. I'm getting a little off real time now, so I'm having trouble remembering what's coming next, but just keep listening and then you'll know. I am leaving, as I'm recording this, I'm leaving for Alaska in a couple days. When it comes out, I will have one more day in Alaska. So there'll be lots to talk about, I'm sure. I'm really, really excited about going. It's just going to be fun. In the meantime, thank you again for listening. Please like and subscribe, 40 Dates in 40 Days, wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow along on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, 40 Dates Podcast, the number 4, 40 Dates Podcast. And yeah, I think that's it for this week. Thank you. again. And as always, wish me luck.